This is the NixOS installer. The reason we are here is pretty simple. My old Arch Linux setup is falling apart. Arch is really great and I enjoyed using it a lot, but I really struggle keeping systems running smoothly over the long term, and Arch was no exception to that. All my Linux systems work fine at first, but in the end they all succumb to one kind of unresolvable dependencies or another. So in short, most of my Linux problems come from a dependency hell I bring onto myself. So this got me curious about NixOS, where the whole idea is that you can declare all your packages in a config file, and then the system gets built automatically and in a clean and reproducible way. This sounds pretty good compared to what I am up to normally in a Linux distribution. I actually tried NixOS once before, but I bounced off it pretty quickly again. The config system seemed a bit much at the time, and I didn't really feel like climbing that learning curve just to get to a working desktop. However, that was a few years and several broken distros ago. So now I'm a bit more open to putting in the effort. What really appeals to me is how NixOS handles hardware. I can build a single base system and then tweak it for the different machines I use around the house. That kind of portability is super appealing. So to see if NixOS and I can actually get along now, I'm going to install it on a spare SSD that I have in my main PC, and I'm gonna try to set it up as a solid, productive environment for my work as a PhD student. This install process is what you have been seeing already in the background. So fingers crossed that it sticks this time, and yeah, with that we start the video. And welcome again to the NixOS installer. In the previous installation I installed NixOS on a SSD that I put into the hot swap bay of my PC. I strongly suspect that this hot swap bay is not loaded at boot or something, because grub didn't see NixOS, but later in my old Arch Linux install, OS Prober found it without any problem. Also, I couldn't find the hard drive in the BIOS options. After some fiddling around with various options, I finally decided to just install the hard drive directly into the PC and just install NixOS again. And it turns out that was all that I needed to fix this particular problem. Of course, I didn't know that the problem was fixed at the time, so that's why you see me wasting my time in the grub 2 mode of the NixOS installer right now. I have no idea what's the difference between the grub 2 mode and the, let's say, normal mode. But right here there's clearly no progress to be made, so let's skip this. Back in the installer I just went through all the settings again. The only problem here was that NixOS refused to erase the disk that I used previously. I don't know why, but I had to manually partition the disk, and then the installer was happy to install NixOS on it again. And with that, NixOS is finally installed and ready to boot. As you might have seen from the clock, this is taking me quite some time to get working. But I guess that has been entirely my own fault. Anyway, we are finally in the terminal and NixOS is indeed working. I can log in, and yeah, from here we can start configuring the system finally. My first priority was to check which text editors I had available. So I don't have Vim, I don't have V, but I have Nano, so that's a start. I then opened the configuration.nix file and just had a look around. For now, the entire configuration of the NixOS system is contained within this configuration.nix file and also the dot files in the home directory. I then start to set up Hyprland, which I want to use as my desktop environment. With a quick change to the environment.system packages field, NixOS will install Vim and Kitty the next time I tell it to rebuild the system. Hyprland itself requires a little bit more configuration by this one line here, which I just copied from the documentation and which I don't really know what it does exactly. I didn't edit as sudo, so well, let's do it again as sudo. And with that, we are ready to do our first rebuild of the system. We do this by NixOS rebuild. When we say switch, to tell NixOS that we want to switch immediately to the new configuration. And of course we are greeted by a wall of errors. Luckily the cause is pretty simple, we are not connected to the internet. I kind of assumed that the NixOS installer would keep the working Wi-Fi configuration and install it to the system, but yeah, I had no grounds to assume this. So I quickly connected to the internet using the Network Manager CLI tool, and then I run the NixOS rebuild again. And the first thing I do after that, of course, is to run Hyprland. Yeah, or rather try to run it. I have a NVIDIA GPU and I could never get Hyprland to run while using Arch Linux. So honestly, I didn't expect it to work out of the box on NixOS as well, but if it would have worked, it would have been pure magic. Well, at least Vim is installed and works. After some research, I find these 3 lines to add NVIDIA drivers to the system. Rebuilding takes a while. After rebuilding, Hyprland still doesn't start, but I think maybe a restart will fix it. Okay, rebooted, and now is the moment of truth. And just like that, Hyprland is working with NVIDIA support. Honestly, I'm really impressed since I never got it to work on Arch. Okay, now I take a moment and just set up Hyprland to my liking, and also I will install Firefox. I want Hyprland to start automatically after I log in, so I need a display manager. Online I found that GDM seems to play nice with Hyprland, and since I'm not looking for trouble, I'm just gonna use that. After some trying around, I end up with these 3 lines at work. Exiting Hyprland after rebuilding the system. And GDM also just works. I've never heard about GDM before, but it looks pretty nice, so I think I will stick with it. And with that success, I think I will finish part 1 here. We managed to set up NixOS with Hyprland and Firefox, so we can do some basic GUI web browsing and use Vim to take notes. This is a very bare bones productivity setup, but we can at least do some things already. In the next part, I want to set up some programming environments. I want to work with Python and also with Julia. I also want to install a knowledge management system. I know some people use Vim or Emacs for that, and while I definitely see the appeal in that, I'm more used to using logseek, so I'm gonna try to install it next time. Another program I need is Zotero, which is a citation manager. And once that is set up, I think my productivity setup is ready to go. It may be a bit basic, but it gets the job done, I think. If you don't want to miss the next part, I think it's a good idea to subscribe, because I don't know when I will be finished with that. But you are clever people, so I think you can also figure it out on your own. Bye.